It is a Thursday that feels like a Monday. And so if you've got a case of the Mondays, it's understandable because it feels like it is a Monday after the brief 2-day break we had in the middle of the week. Here's the good news. The good news is tomorrow's Friday. So it feels like Monday, but tomorrow's Friday. And that's awesome. It's the miracle of StreamYard that connects me here in Waxahachie, Texas, with Jeff there in what city in Colorado, Jeff?
Loveland, Colorado. We're about an hour north of Denver right now.
The DLLS Rangers Podcast. We're thrilled to be with you, and we're hanging by our nails, really, frankly. I mean, thank God for the Queen. Kat's with us today, put this all together technically. I'm the problem always. I live in the country and can't seem to get these things up and running very well. But anyway, here we are, and we got a lot to talk about, Jeff. We said it in the headline. You're out doing your final Christmas shopping. The Rangers are still shopping for pitching right down to the wire at the holiday, and I know they're not done yet.
Yeah, it's another interesting bullpen addition in Shawn Armstrong, who, pitched for 3 teams last year, didn't have a great season, but he's not that far removed from being like a stalwart in the Tampa Bay bullpen and the always good Tampa Bay bullpen as well. You know, how they always find guys and mix and match and make it work. An affordable addition on a 1-year deal. A guy who, and this was the buzzword on the beat writers conference call the other day, was he raises the floor of our bullpen. Well, what the hell does that mean?
Right.
I think what it means is the Rangers have added a veteran arm. I think it means that these young guys, Mark Church, Cole Winn, Walt Pennington, Jake Latch, they better be good. You know, they're going to have to be really good and show some moxie and show some ability to pitch, because the Rangers have added some veteran arms. I don't think they're done. You know, they're still, it was pretty funny, John, during the winter meetings. I don't recall what we were doing by our table. It might have been when we were getting ready to do the live show. No, it was after we taped Chuck Greenberg. We're talking to Chuck, and then right there to the left is Chris Martin, the former Rangers pitcher.
Yeah.
And now there's, interest in Chris, who's 39, I believe now, getting ready to retire. And he lives, if memory serves, at least at one point, he lived out by Canyon West Golf Course, in the that kind of just past Weatherford area.
And didn't he go to Arlington High School, Jeff? Chris?
Right. Yeah. He went to Arlington High School. I mean, he's got this great backstory. Arlington High School was pretty much done with baseball. Was working in not a factory, but a warehouse, like loading refrigerators onto trucks and stuff and delivering them. And then he ended up getting back into baseball. Was after a junior college injury, pitched for the, I believe the Yankees and maybe the Rockies, ended up going to Japan like so many guys do, got everything straightened out and came back. And he's been fantastic. I mean, He's just a great reliever. He's spent the last couple of years with the Red Sox. So I do think there's still a couple more additions coming. You want a guy who can handle those situations, and Chris Martin can do that. But the conference call the other day with Chris Young and Ross Fenstermaker, bullpen still remains the number one focus. Really, it seems like it's the missing piece. The last thing they have to do. The trade in Nathaniel Lowe freed up some money for Jock Peterson. The Rangers on that call would not confirm that. Physical is still pending. You would hope that it's being done this week, though with Christmas, and then everybody's traveling, and you really don't want to travel this time of year if you're Jock Peterson, and there's no real rush. So this may not get announced till after the new year, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't be the first time, that something like that's happened. So, but anyway, that's it. It just seems like there's still somebody out there to go ahead and do a couple other things, because again, this bullpen's not quite done, and we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, and so let's take a look at what has been done, at least what we know has been done. The Rangers haven't announced all this, but here's what you have working right now and what the Rangers have done. The veterans, Jeff, that they have added this offseason. And it's interesting. A lot of it, as you see, addresses specific needs. A couple of them at catcher. Is Higashioka even on that?
Yeah, he's on there. He's
okay, good. Yeah.
Oh, the what was the old game? Hollywood Squares. He'd be.
Yeah.
I don't know if Robert Garcia deserves the center square.
Yeah, Robert Garcia.
He's usually a big time guy.
Yeah, I got Kyle there. Yeah, so I love that. That's the Brady Bunch or the Hollywood Squares, and that's fantastic. And that's all veteran guys, Jeff. And it's interesting. A lot of them are bullpen pieces, and I think you're right. It's interesting that when they say we're raising the floor. You're right. The Walt Penningtons of the world, the Jake Latzes of the world were the floor last year. So now the floor is raised. So if you want to be on the floor, right, or above the floor, you've got to raise your level. You've got to raise your game. And there's nothing that's bad about competition. Even if these are, in some cases, especially if they get a 39-year-old Chris Martin, right? These are veterans, aging veterans, but hey, if they can push these young guys to be the very best they can be, that's fantastic. It's a win-win for the Rangers, who also, in all these different bullpen scenarios, just haven't had to spend much money yet.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing. Somebody told me at the end of last season, toward the end of last season, that the pro scouts had been told, go out there and find a way to build a cheap bullpen. And, I think everybody, teams don't want to, have a $90 million bullpen. Everybody wants to do it affordably, but when you think cheap, you're kind of thinking, oh, they must be looking for young guys or some minor leaguers who are getting just on the verge. But they found some veteran guys who their profiles fit and make them better against left-handers. And so anyway, and like the trade with Nate Lowe for Garcia, that is an affordable young guy, but. The two of those 9 are guys coming to the camp on minor league deals. Adrian Hauser, who is a veteran guy who's been a starter. He pitched for the Mets last year, pitched for the Brewers, and has been good. And then the catcher on there, Tucker Barnhart.
Yeah,
he becomes a legitimate guy because Sam Huff was designated for assignment to make room for Armstrong. Now Sam could clear waivers, and if he does. He gets assigned outright to AAA, and he's off the 40 man, and he still has an opportunity to, make the club stay with the organization. And personally, I hope that's what happens because I love the guy. But he's also a guy who could, the old change of scenery the type of situation. Yep. I just want I want the best for that guy, but. Those are 2 other guys that you got to pay attention to because they're going to have a chance. They really are.
Yeah, you've got to you root for that guy. I do too, because he's a great kid and I hope he makes it somewhere. And I hope that also, and I'm sure this happened, that the Rangers probably said to him 2 days before Christmas or whenever they were letting him know or letting his agent know that he was DFA'd, hey, you have every chance still to make this team. We just need this spot on the 40-man roster.
Yeah, and that's kind of where this is how much better the roster has gotten.
Yep.
Owen White got designated first.
Yeah.
Now this is a guy who was a top 100 prospect in baseball not long ago. Sam Huff is a guy who's been a prospect for a long time. I know he ran out of rookie eligibility, but the hope has been that this guy, could figure it out. Unbelievable power, and but they're not. The Rangers aren't in a position anymore to carry these guys. And so you wonder, and it's really strange because you would have thought if you just looked at the 40-man roster, well, who's a DFA candidate? Oh, well, Gerson Garabito is. but Gerson Garabito, who's the ultimate in journeyman and another good story, but the Rangers valued him more than Owen White or thought they could get. Maybe they think they can get Owen White through waivers. I don't know. It's kind of telling that this is where they're at now. These guys who big parts of the future, it's what, fish or cut bait.
Yeah, I like that. And by the way, it's a roster that a year ago, even with all these guys on it, we still thought had a pretty legitimate shot at competing for another World Series, right? And they've improved it that much. So that means they've improved the team a lot. And that is fantastic, because the reality is we thought they were really good last year. They're even better this year. And again, if these guys can raise that level, it does nothing but help the team and increase those chances.
Yeah. And, you got to have these optionable guys,
Yeah.
So these guys who are coming in, these veterans who are coming in on 1-year major league deals, but you have to have optionable pieces. You got to, because we all know that, if you have a game where you use 7 relievers, well, by God, the next day somebody's coming up from the minor leagues and somebody's going down.
Yeah.
So they have to. That's part of the depth, and it would be great to see. Like I said, at least I still think 2 more arms are a coming, and then again that raises the floor even more, and then you get to the point where it's like, well, gosh, could Dane Dunning start in the minor leagues? Could Cody Bradford start in the minor leagues? So it gets
both of whom have options, Jeff. Do they both have options?
They do. Yeah.
So
it's an interesting time, but then you're like, well, geez, Shawn Armstrong didn't pitch for crap last year, so
right.
It seems like he would have to make the roster, but that's an expensive cut, at the end of spring training. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you generally don't pitch for 3 teams in a season, as Shawn Armstrong did last year, because you're going great. Right? That generally is a portent of we've had a bad year. And but again, he's got major league talent, and I think he's been with like 10 different teams. He's got tons of major league experience. So there's just been so much going on. We know this, though. They still need a closer, and that hasn't. None of the guys we're seeing on that list or we saw on that graphic, Jeff, are real candidates to be a closer, are they? Again, I mean, Kirby Yates wasn't last year, but he had closed before.
Yeah, exactly. These guys, Kirby Yates saved 41 games in 2019 and was the best reliever in baseball. Right. Then he gets hurt. Takes a while for him to come back from Tommy John, but he'd been there. He had that. None of these guys have that. So that's why I still think that. I don't think. That's why I know the Rangers are going to go sign a closer. It's just no closer has signed yet. No big closer has signed yet via free agency. Mike Bassick the other day thought, well, maybe they do this via trade. That's a possibility. So anyway, this projected bullpen, I didn't throw it together. I put it together with some some consternation and some thought. But these are guys who are on the 40-man roster. I didn't consider Hauser, who really, if Bradford ends up in the rotation, let's say, Hauser becomes a guy. It's just interesting. They've got a lot of options, which you need, but they're still just lacking. Really, I think the 8th and 9th inning.
Yeah, and Ross Fenstermaker said it the other day when you guys had the conference call. He said, we're still looking for somebody who's ready for leverage, right? Yeah. Which means those high leverage situations at the end of a game.
Right, and Milner's been in there before, so that's good. You would think that Garcia could be a matchup guy. Jacob Webb, pitch for a really good team the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So you'll see them late in games, but I don't think the Rangers are going to go to opening day with them as their primary 8th and 9th inning guys.
Sure. Lots more coming up on the DLLS Rangers podcast on this day after Christmas. They call it Boxing Day in a lot of places. And so we will try to put inside of a box what the Rangers lineup, batting order, will look like against left and right-handed pitchers. Also, Jeff had a chat with Chris Young about Roki Sasaki the other day. We'll talk a lot more about that and see if we can get some clarity there. It's all coming up on the DLLS Rangers podcast. But first, I want to tell you about Empire Today. It is a fantastic flooring company. And now that you've got Christmas, or as our buddy Mike Reiner says, you made Christmas. You made it through Christmas, right? Now it's time to focus on the new year, and you need new floors. Admit it. At least in one room of the house, you need new flooring. It's so easy to get at Empire Today. We encourage you to get this new flooring. They've got the best stuff. They've got the highest quality, and really pretty much everything they sell is what the other guys sell. However, Empire Today did it first. They invented it. They install it. They have a warranty that they stand behind so strongly. So make sure you do this. Use the technology that's available. It's just picture of the floor. Take it to Empire Today. They show you 10 different options of what you could put on that floor in that room to make it look fantastic. So start the new year right with some new floors. Go to Empire Today. You go to empiretoday.com back with the code DLLS, and you get $350 off your new floors.
I'll tell you what, John, here in Colorado, Sleeper is not available.
It's not?
No.
Whoa, man. You're going to have to come home early.
You can do everything. You can do everything in Colorado. I'm surprised cocaine's not legal here. But anyway, Sleeper not available, but it is available in the great state of Texas. You see right now, play 5, get 55 if you use the code DLLS Rangers. Here's what Sleeper is. Besides one of the first things I do every morning, Sleeper is daily picks. They've been known for their fantasy stuff. Now they're doing daily picks, more or less than 200 yards passing for Patrick Mahomes, stuff like that. And you end up, you can flex it. You can go max. If you flex, the odds are a little bit less, but you still win some money and have some wiggle room. I love it. All right, I love it. I do it every day. I won't be doing it for the next 5 days, but that's all right. That's all right. Take a little break, do some research. Anyway, that code again, DLS Rangers.
Perfect. So after our super fun show with Mike Bassick the other day, on the day before Christmas Eve, Jeff ran off with some of the other beat writers and had a conference call, press conference, if you will, via Zoom. We're both CY and Ross on that call, Jeff?
They were, yeah. So, I think that's kind of the way it's going to be from a media standpoint. I think that Ross will gradually take on more media responsibility. I think, bigger acquisitions like this are going to be Chris and Ross both, just kind of a delicate situation, and Chris will handle the hard hitting questions. Like Chris, have you guys had a chance to meet with Roki Sasaki, or is any of that is something planned in the near future? I threw it out there, not expecting him to answer it, and by God, he did answer it. Maybe he took the lead from Dave Dombrowski for the Phillies when he was asked, and they had not had a meeting, nor do they have something set up. The good news is that yes, the Rangers have met with Roki Sasaki. They did so last week. Likely, although Chris Young didn't say, probably in Los Angeles. That's where the Mets and the Yankees had met with them, which makes a lot of sense because I think that's where the agent's based. So, hey, good news. And I just want to say, I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm not trying to boost up the Rangers and be a homer, but it just seemed throughout this whole process that anybody who's been paying attention would think that the Rangers are definitely getting an interview with this guy. And they did. Yeah. I mean, they've done too much work. if anybody had paid attention to the Rangers from middle September to now, it's very clear that they were doing enough work, leg work, background work, to get at least in the room for a meeting, and maybe, I'm not saying the Rangers are going to sign him, but people who are dismissing the Rangers or not considering the Rangers, just it was lazy, or whatever it was. It was just wrong.
Yeah.
So do your research next time, and recognize, just if you're really serious about this stuff, Google it. Google Reds and Roki Sasaki, Pirates and Roki Sasaki, Rangers are, the Rangers have done a lot of, their GM and president of baseball operations went to Japan. Oh man, they have Yu Darvish. They've got a lot of Japanese players. Interesting. I wonder if they're a contender. It's obvious they were.
Yeah. And the other thing I will give you credit for and pat you on the back for, Jeff, and having sat in so many of these press conferences, sometimes we as media outsmart ourselves, right? Like, I know he can't talk about Sasaki, so I'm not even going to ask it, right? And luckily you did, right? You might have fallen into that trap too, because it happens to us. It's like, he can't really talk about Sasaki. I don't want to waste anybody's time here. And luckily you asked about it, and he didn't give much information, but he gave the most important information, which is that they have, right? They have.
Yeah, and shoot, I remember with Ohtani, when the Rangers were in on that, and I think they gave us, after the fact that it had happened, that they'd met with them, and then it was just radio silence. As you guys know, I'm on the Do It for Dirt board, and so was John Daniels, and at the time he was running the Rangers, and we have a Christmas dinner every year, and we get together and go to a nice restaurant. He didn't want to go because A, he was afraid he would say something to him. And then B, he wanted to be by the phone in case they got the word. Or if something happened, he didn't want to stand up and leave and raise my suspicions. So, they want to keep this quiet. And, the next meeting, if it happens, if Sasaki comes to town, maybe I have to go to the ballpark and stake it out or something, But anyway, we'll hear about it after the fact. And then after that, until he signs, we're not going to hear anything.
Yeah.
But it's just, they're very, to your point, they're very cautious about this. They don't want to say anything that would upset Sasaki or the process. And but just ask, and I'm sure Evan and Kennedy are kind of thinking the same thing. What's the worst that could happen? You can say, oh no, we're not going to talk about that. That's all it is. Yeah. So
I just can't comment.
That's the worst.
Yeah.
That's the worst that comes of it. Big deal. Yeah. It's not the first time we've been told no.
No. And the reality is, you mentioned it, I think it was on the show when we had Bassick on Monday, but you said, look, things are going to leak out in New York, no matter what. They always do. There's so many media, right? Here, they don't leak out, and that's really a credit to the Rangers and how they keep a lid on this. So, and in this case, it didn't leak out. Chris Young said it. We never heard a quote from Brian Cashman that the Yankees had met with them. We just heard through a media member up there that the Yankees and Mets have both met with him.
And that's the way they prefer to do business. I think that is a continuation of the John Daniels era, but also has the influence of Chris Young's time with Major League Baseball. MLB doesn't want anybody talking about any transactions, but it affects markets, all this stuff. But you're going to find somebody in an organization who's going to talk to you, especially if you have 10 organizations and 20 reporters spread out and who get to know everybody in the organization. Somebody's going to know something and say something. So, and we know a lot of people, and believe me, I text a lot of people when something happens and they just do not respond.
Yeah. So they've got their marching orders. Yeah. They've got those marching orders. That's very good. And it really, it's a benefit for the Rangers not to have these things leak out. Chris Young has done so much already this offseason, and give Ross Fenstermaker credit too. I mean, Chris is the president of baseball operations. Ross is essentially, as far as baseball operations go, his right-hand man as the general manager. But I think we also have to throw some love Ray Davis's way, who we have, been critical of in the past, certainly.
Yeah.
Because, again, my thought on him has always been, it's like he's schizophrenic, right? He's either going to spend no money or he's going to spend $1 billion, and so how about we marry it, but a little more consistency. But I have to give him a lot of credit. Maybe most of it goes to Chris Young. They still haven't gone over the CBT. It still looks like it'll be possible to at least stay under it as the season begins. And then they might have to exceed it if they have to make any financial moves during the season. But the reality is, Chris Young told us at the beginning of the offseason, we will have enough money to do the things that we want to do. And here they are. They do, and they have.
Yeah. A couple of things. Yeah. I think, and I think we alluded to it last week, this TV deal might be in better shape than any of us think. All right. So there might be some, not just some money coming in immediately, but a foundation going forward. Okay. So I think that might be a factor. And then, I think that, everybody liked winning the World Series. I'm sure Ray Davis liked it too. So
no doubt.
And so maybe I want to keep winning. So here's $50 million. But also, and I think this is a really interesting point, is that, Chris Young went into September, the final month of the season, having not had his contract extended. And there were some things he wanted to make sure of before he signed on. He wanted to make sure that ownership was aligned with his vision. Now, his vision is, what everybody's vision is probably, robust farm system, but the ability to make investments in players, good players, and to have the wherewithal to do that. And I don't think he would have had signed on if Ray Davis said, no, we're having a fire sale or something like that. I think that Chris would have said, okay, I'm going to go retire and watch my kids play sports. And, he's on what I know I'm older than he is. So, he's got a lot of years ahead of just shoot, play golf and watch the kids.
Sure. Yeah. Got plenty of money.
Yeah. Or get a job somewhere else. I mean, look, Rob Manfred's going to retire at some point. This is the 2025. The next CBA will be his last deal. Shoot, how about Commissioner Chris Young? Yeah, seriously. When you start thinking about candidates, the owners are the ones who choose who the next commissioner is going to be. Now, Manfred's a lawyer. Bud Selig was an owner. Bart Giamatti, I think, was a lawyer. Peter Uberoth. We're going back to the damn.
Yeah, we're going way. Kennesaw Mountain Landis. Yeah.
I'm just saying,
Yeah, I agree.
Chris Young's going to look pretty good to these owners. All right. Now, I don't know if he'd want that job or not, but he could handle it pretty well. It'd be interesting. It'd be interesting to have a former player going against the Players Association, though. I don't know if that would ever be.
It might never, but I will say this. I remember when Manfred's job came open and Rob Manfred got that job, and I was working with Pudge a lot at the time. And Pudge wanted it. He heard what it paid, and he heard you get your own jet, and he's like, I want that job. I'm like, well, throw your hat in the ring. You're a Hall of Famer. You're freaking Pudge Rodriguez.
It pays like 20 million plus a year. You do get your own plane. You get a security detail.
Yeah.
You're always in an Escalade or a Tahoe.
And a 5-star hotel. Yeah.
It ain't bad.
No.
It ain't bad. So anyway.
But
you are the owner's bidder. I mean, that's the commissioner's job. The commissioner does what ownership wants. It's not just some guy acting roguely in his own interests. It's the 30 owners who they hire and fire this guy. That's the deal. So the commissioner is not just some almighty guy. He has 30 people telling him what to do.
Yeah. If Pudge gets it next time, I'll make sure I get us jobs.
Okay.
The assistant deputy to the assistant deputy commissioner or something. So
perfect.
Yeah, that'd be great. All right, lots more coming up as we continue on the DLLS Rangers podcast. Happy Boxing Day. I trust that everyone had a great Christmas, and now we look forward to New Year's, and in the next segment, we'll look forward to the new batting order for the Texas Rangers, one against right-handers, one against left-handers. We'll talk about it. There's lots of possibilities. There's another area where there are a lot of options. It's coming up next on the DLLS Rangers podcast. Jeff, you know what would look great behind me?
What's that, John?
Some neon. I mean, like the top of you see the top of the tree there, and it pops, because of the light on there. But imagine if I had, Oakland University on a neon sign right back there. Which, by the way, the Golden Grizzlies are playing Arkansas and John Calipari on December 30th. My daughter went to Arkansas.
Oh,
man, that is going to be the Radigan Bowl there. And so I would really dearly love to have an Oakland Union. I don't think Oakland's one of the 50 schools that Saturday Neon has yet, but they have 50 colleges and universities. Most of them that you went to are much bigger than Oakland. So you should avail yourself to this Saturday Neon, because that's a LED neon. It's not the old-fashioned kind that had gas running through it. And it's bright, and it's cool, and it's awesome. And if you go to SaturdayNeon.com and use the code DLLS, you get 10% off. And that way you'll be ready for the NCAA basketball tournament with a little neon for your sports room that commemorates and shows off your very favorite team.
Hey, is it Greg Campy? Is that the coach?
It is. Wow,
Greg
thank you for knowing that.
This is a big Greg Campy, John Calipari rematch from the NCAA tournament.
That's exactly
Greg Campy might be the reason why John Calipari is at Arkansas.
And who knew they would become such good buddies after that? But they are. Yeah,
that's right. And you know what good buddies do? They share beers from a Rugged Road cooler.
Yep.
John and I, we're going to do that at some point. But if you're an adventurer or just a parent who has a bunch of kids who play sports at the football field or the baseball diamond, you're going to want a Rugged Road cooler. Why? Because they're lightweight and they're durable, and they keep all your stuff cold for up to a week. That's a long baseball tournament. Hopefully we never run into one of those. But if we have a Rugged Road, it'd make things a lot better. So gear up for your next adventure with Rugged Road coolers. Reliable, durable, and built to be used. Rugged Road is your ultimate outdoor companion. Head to ruggedroadoutdoors.com and use the code DLLS for 10% off.
Fantastic. And yes, let's encourage that. It's going to be warm this weekend, so you go out there and get a few beers and hang out outside a little bit. It'll be awfully fun. Lots of football, obviously, to watch this weekend. I think every day this week almost we've had football, including NFL yesterday. But, man, we're talking baseball here. And this morning as I was prepping, Jeff, I was in touch with the Queen, and I was telling her, I'm going to send over a couple of lineups. And this is, I'm kind of proud of this, like you were proud in the last segment. I'm kind of proud of this. I said, I'm going to send over a couple of batting orders, and then we'll let Jeff shoot holes in them. But frankly, you didn't shoot that many holes in them. So I'm kind of pleased that I passed muster with you here. And I think there's a lot of people. In fact, even Kat, the Queen, Kat, wisely asked the question, in the left versus left-handed pitchers, you have Langford as the center fielder, and versus right-handed pitchers, you have him as the left fielder. Is that intentional? Which I think is a really good catch, Queen. But yes, it was, because you're going to move him around based on who will play elsewhere in the lineup. These are some of those options that we're talking about when you look at a batting order, Jeff.
Yeah. Just as the roster as it's currently constructed, there's still some questions about the outfield. And,
Yes.
Evan Carter and Leody Taveras haven't hit left-handed pitching to date. So that's an issue, man. If you're looking to win, you need to shore up against you need to shore up the outfield at least. And there was a question in the chat. Somebody said that the Rangers still need a right-handed hitting outfielder. I don't necessarily disagree. But if you do that, you create you're going to be pushing somebody out. So, we'll see what happens. Ezekiel Duran could be a guy who becomes an outfield option there. The one thing against left-handers, I would probably move Josh Young up higher because he's just a terror against them. Now, depending on if you do your lineup in thirds, something like that. But I would probably move him up. Jonah Heim, his best side is actually as a right-handed hitter. So I would put him there over Higashioka, which was like the one significant change I made to that, John. And then what are you going to do with Josh Smith? And
that's the thing.
If Carter and Taveras aren't good enough against left-handers, Josh Smith ain't bad against them. He is a left-handed hitter though.
Yeah.
But he's going to get you on base, and if you have a guy getting on base at the bottom of the lineup for the big three there at the top, I do think we need to mention that our leadoff hitter here is not Marcus Semien.
That's a great point.
Has been talked about. I still don't know that the Rangers have a great candidate. I know Mike Bassick likes Langford at the top, and he can do a lot for you. He can get on base, he can steal a base, he can get a home run, and really, you want your best hitters getting the most at bats. So I don't mind that. I could still though see Semien leading off and Langford batting third, but anyway, yeah. And then against right-handers, Jock Peterson, right there in the middle of it all, and then Heimer, Higashioka. Higashioka's and they're both going to split time. I would think that Higashioka would get a lot of at-bats against right-handers just based on Heim's struggles against them. And then I put down, I did add a slash Taveras to Carter.
Right, that's what I was going to say, yeah.
I still want to make sure Evan Carter's healthy.
Yeah, and you still want to give Leody. I mean, I felt bad about not having Leody anywhere in my either batting order, but I was like, well, you got to perform on the field, right, to get there. And but I think that's a good option because the reality is Evan Carter hasn't had the opportunity to show that he can do it day in and day out, year in and year out, and we'll have to ferret that out. I don't love on the left-handed batting order. I don't love Josh Smith in left field. I just want to get that bat, a silver slugger from a year ago, into the lineup somewhere, right? I want him in there. And the other thing I could see, but he's got to prove that he can hit left-handed pitching, and I'm not sure how he gets this opportunity, but I hope he does. But if Carter could prove he can hit left-handed pitching, I'd move him right up to the top of the order.
Well,
right? And get some of that power a little lower in the order. We know the thing I love about Langford at the top, even more so than his power, is his patience, right? His ability to work a pitcher. I think we know from our short, views of him that Carter's as good or better. What's his nickname? 3 and 2.
Full count Carter. Yeah,
full count Carter. Yeah. So anyway, I think he'd be really good in that spot. But you don't want to switch your leadoff hitter every day, right? Or every time there's a lefty.
Yeah. Well, and if you go back to 23, the Rangers were so successful because at the 9 spot, Leo Taveras was getting on base for the big guys, and the bottom of the lineup, those guys are getting on base a lot. So there's a case that keep Carter down there because that's where he was when he debuted. He was
that's right.
Yeah, just gradually was so good that he forced his way up to the 3 hole in the World Series.
Yeah.
Now, if he is good, I could see him moving up because in that projected lineup, we've got a glut of right-handed hitters.
Yes.
And it wouldn't be bad to throw a left-handed bat in there and kind of
somewhere in the middle, break them up.
Some bullpen plans late in games. But yeah, break up all the righties. But again, if that knocks a low on base guy down to the 9th spot, I don't know that you want to do that. So it's a tricky situation. But again, I want to see Evan Carter healthy.
Yeah,
really want to see him healthy.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about the batting orders that we just put out there is there's no Ezekiel Duran, right? So
you did have him against lefties.
I did. Okay, good. Okay,
yeah,
but he didn't perform well enough last year to demand. There he is. Yeah, but he didn't perform well enough last year to demand a spot, right? He would be the DH, but he didn't demand a spot as an everyday player. So I guess that is just a way to get both he and Smith. That is what I was thinking on that left-handed against left-handed pitchers. I'm trying to get these two guys enough reps to keep them, hot, good, active, right, and not sitting too often.
Yeah, and these guys need at bats, and Ezekiel Duran is still a young hitter, and so is Josh Smith, to be honest. And we've seen what happens when they get a lot of at bats; they're very, very good. And we've seen when they don't get a lot of at bats, they're not very good at all. So it's a tough spot for Bruce Bochy because he recognizes that and he doesn't want them sitting. And I don't know that you want to send these guys to AAA either. So
no.
I don't know. Fortunately, we don't get paid to make this decision.
Right.
Or unfortunately, I'd like Bruce Bochy's salary. I'd take the heat for whatever.
Yeah. And you do think and Boch is this kind of guy, and I know Wash was this kind of guy, but you feel like these guys literally, put pencil to paper or pen to paper multiple times between now and the beginning of the season, or certainly between now and the beginning of spring training, just doing what we're doing right now, going through the options of, all right, now if we did this, then that. And if we didn't do this, then that. And what if do we always put our quote unquote, I mean, you want that bottom third of the order to be good. And in years past, it was almost always kind of the worst hitter bats 9th. Well, that logic has kind of flown out the window. Even when pitchers were still hitting in the National League, a lot of times they were hitting 8th instead of 9th. So you could get that Evan Carter type or Leody Taveras type on base for the top of the order, right? So, but all those different kinds of decisions and machinations of a batting order, Boch is running through all those, both against lefties and righties.
Yeah, and one thing though that he does do, which probably skews from the analytics crowd, is he rides the hot hand. It doesn't matter who
he does.
He will stick with a guy. So a lot of variations. A lot of different things coming up, but it's fun to talk about.
It is. And to your point about sticking with the guy, you just referenced it's more than just stick with the guy. Evan Carter, right? He was hot in September and October in 2023. And not only did Boch stick with him, but he kept finding more important spots in the batting order for him. Analytics probably would have said, what are you doing? And Boch looked like a genius. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, he's pretty good.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
He knows what he's doing.
He does, and he's not afraid of the analytics. He doesn't, put them at arm's length or anything. He'll embrace them, but he also wants to make sure that he doesn't forget that they've got to pass the eyeball test too. So he does that very well. Coming up next, it is our batting cleanup segment. We've got lots of things to talk about there. And, of course, we are going to get you ready for another one of these tomorrow. It's all coming next on the DLLS Rangers Podcast. Let me see if you can see it. I got my flag shirt on.
Okay.
I like this one. I like this one because it doesn't say anything. So if you know, you know, and if you don't, you don't. And so if you become a diehard, you can get one of these shirts or any of the shirts in our on our All City Network store. You can get any of them for free just by becoming a diehard. Also, you get all the things that Jeff writes, and that our writers for the Cowboys. Clarence Hill, who was Jeff's teammate at the Star Telegram for a long time, and Joseph Hoyt, and all those guys. Right, Mark Stein and Tim Cato write for our Mavericks content. So there's just so much that you can get if you become a diehard, plus 20% off any of these merchandise items that you buy. Plus 20% off the events, which we promise to begin having. We're really going to put a focus on trying to get a spring training event going now that we're getting close to that, and now that this team looks like it's going to be so much fun to watch. So stay tuned for all of that. Get 20% off all of that, $79.95 to become a diehard and hang out with us each and every day.
Yeah, and then go check out our stuff at store.allcitynetwork.com. John, for Christmas got the camo hoodie.
Oh, nice.
And I got a out of market shirt, a Broncos shirt from DNVR, and then my son, who somehow became a Travis Hunter fan, got the Travis Hunter shirt from DNVR. So they're great items, and I really think I'm up to 15 or 16 now. I might have to hit the pause button on them. But then if we get new stuff that comes out, I'm going to have to get that stuff too, including the hats. The hats, I can't wait. So, again, that's store.allcitynetwork.com.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. We love it, and we know you will too. It's time for us to do a little cleanup in this show. And we talked about Sasaki being involved, obviously, with the Rangers. And it's now you're seeing less and less. Now, we know the Phillies haven't done anything. You mentioned that earlier in the show, and that was straight from the horse's mouth as well. We have to assume, Jeff, don't we, that every team tried. So the Phillies tried, and the Sasaki camp said, "No, we're not really interested in Philadelphia," right? I mean, that hasn't been stated, but that's what we have to imply, correct?
Sure, and again, going back to the winter meetings when Joel Wolf was talking about, okay, there's going to be a box folder that everybody can dump their presentations into. We're going to look at them, and then going to make some cuts, and or maybe there were cuts that were already made that obviously seemed pretty apparent from the get-go. But you'd be foolish to not try. At least get in there. So anyway, I'm sure that more than 4 teams have met with them. Maybe reporters haven't asked yet. I would suspect, just based on baseball history and things, that the Mariners have had a meeting or will get a meeting with them. The Chicago one, well, not the Chicago teams, a Chicago team, the Cubs, could get an opportunity with their Japanese history and current roster. So, but again, we're going to find out. There's going to be a second wave of interviews. At least that's what Joel Wolf anticipates. And these could be on site. So you could see Sasaki at Yankee Stadium one morning and at Chase Field in the afternoon. Or not Chase Field, whatever it is, Citi Field. And then maybe on his way back, they connect through Dallas and just slide over to Arlington and check out the ballpark. I do doubt that he'll be flying commercially, assuming there's a jet geared up for him. But there's going to be, and this doesn't mention the Padres and the Dodgers, who are the presumptive favorites, just based on a bunch of, I don't know, what's I can't think of the legal term, evidence, but nothing that's been proven yet, So,
right.
So we'll see what happens. And again, with the holidays now, probably, and with the dead period in place for Japanese or all international prospects, I'm thinking probably that week starting Jan 8, or Jan 7, whatever the Monday is of that week. Well, shoot, no, the 8th would be a Wednesday. So the
Wednesday,
the 6th, that week, I would suspect that week we start hearing a little bit more.
Yeah, Jan 8th is the day that I am scheduled, if you will, to become a grandpa.
Oh, man.
So, yeah. So I hope it happens before, but it won't matter. I mean, we'll be all over it no matter what. But I may have the baby. You know, I may be holding my grandchild in my arms as
Absolutely.
we talk about this. Yeah. So, but anyway, it is interesting because you wonder. It makes you wonder how many teams they eliminated. It clearly looks like a lot, right?
Sure.
I mean, the vast majority of teams. But like you say, it's hard to imagine a world in which they haven't or won't visit with the Mariners. I mean, this is a team that has a team in a city that has a tremendous Asian population. The city does, and the team has, a tremendous history and really past and present with Asian players.
Well, they have as big a star as Ohtani is. I think Ichiro probably at one point in his stardom eclipsed it and is going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame this year. So there's a lot going on there. And then, so, they used to be owned by Nintendo. So there's just a lot of
logic, right?
A lot of dots. Yeah. So anyway,
all right. I'm gonna get fuzzy for a minute here, Jeff, while I make sure I plug this phone in. All right, stand by.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I just don't want to lose juice. Right. Boom.
Yeah.
All right.
You're good.
We won't lose me. Now.
Hey, speaking of Japan, Japanese baseball, I wanted to hold this up.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a book. That guy who was screaming was Tony Barnett, who we remember, former Rangers reliever who came from Japan. He and his and Aaron Fishman, an author, have written a book about his experience, and I've just started reading it. It's a really good book. It's a Casey Award finalist, and the Casey Award is for the best baseball book of the year. So but it tells a pretty interesting story. Tony never pitched in the major leagues before he went to Japan,
right?
And then came to Japan, or from Japan to the Rangers to ultimately make it, to make his ultimate dream, which was pitching in the major leagues. You hear a lot of guys like Chris Martin who and Colby Lewis who do it backwards. They pitch in the majors and maybe it doesn't go well, so they go to Japan, get some paychecks, but also work on their craft and revitalize their major league chances, and then come back and make a boatload of money. It's a really interesting book so far. It really gets into, it's called a baseball gaijin, and gaijin is the Japanese word for foreigner. And so it talks about his experience. It's early on in the book, but it's just a really good story. So I'm looking forward to finishing it, and we'll have old Tony on once I get done with it. And John, if you want to take a pass at it, you're welcome to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have him on and talk about his book. But baseball gaijin, Gaijin. Do you get the sense early that is almost a derogatory term? It can be a derogatory term. I think in a baseball parlance, it's not. I think because teams from Japan are allowed to have 4 foreign players on their roster, and it's not always Americans. There are a lot of Dominican players in there.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think Korean teams can only have 3. I think that's where things stand there. But it's definitely interesting, and talks about, the challenges that these guys face off the field and how they can affect on the field, but how, in Tony's case, it was his ultimate goal to get back to the major league. So he went through some stuff in Japan. So anyway, I'm looking forward to reading the rest of it. But I would recommend, it seems like if you're a baseball person, this is a great book for you to read. And I mean, I don't know, I'm 60 pages in and I've learned a lot about Japanese baseball. So.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I learned, I'm sure you did too. I learned a lot about Japanese baseball and about the experience from Colby. Just conversations with Colby Lewis too. And it's a bigger animal than you can even imagine. And Colby, most of his stuff is fairly fond, right? He has mostly fond memories ultimately. Right. But anyway, so good. That's a great recommendation. Speaking of former Rangers, another former Rangers pitcher celebrating his 37th birthday today, Jeff.
I don't know.
Mike Minor.
Oh, all right.
Mike Minor's birthday.
I liked Mike a lot. He and I got along real well. Good story. Guy from Tennessee and first round pick by the Braves, ended up pitching for them, and then moved on in his career, had some injuries that he had to deal with, and then had the best season of his career with the Rangers, was an all-star, I believe, in 2019. And they worked him in slowly in 18. He was come off an injury, and then didn't sit well with him. In 19, he pitched so well. 20 was a little bit down, but he got traded to the A's. Ended up, I think, the last team he played for was the Reds, I believe. And but good guy, and good. Happy birthday to Mike Minor.
I remember a game in that year they were being so careful with him. He was in Boston.
Remember that? What you're talking about? Yeah.
Fenway Park, and he's rolling, and they just pulled him out, and he was not.
He was hot afterwards. Yeah.
He was. He came into that. It took him a while, but when he came into that clubhouse, he was coming in hot.
Yeah. He was not happy. I remember that very well.
On that portion of the road trip too. So but happy birthday to Mike Minor. We are big fans. That was a guy we enjoyed having around here very much, no doubt about that. Walker, speaking of the Red Sox and Boston, Walker Buhler has apparently, according to reports, signed a 1-year deal with the Red Sox after his heroics in the World Series. And I will say this, I think that's a pretty good flyer to take. I mean, I get it that Buhler didn't have a very good year, but he was coming off Tommy John surgery too.
There's a little risk involved, but it's he apparently, the A's contacted him. He said, "There's no way I'm pitching in Sacramento." You see these. Luis Severino didn't seem to mind, but Walker was like, "Nope." So it's a chance, a good fit for him. And then you kind of look at what the Red Sox have done with the trade for Crochet, and now this addition. If they're still in the Corbin Burns mix, then they're going to have a hell of a rotation on paper, at least. So that's an interesting one that Corbin Burns hasn't signed yet.
Very interesting.
There's not a lot of teams left really that can have that need. I mean, I guess you can always find a spot for Corbin Burns if the value was right. And I know the Rangers John Heyman said they were a sleeper for him. I guess that was based on their pursuit of Max Fried. I think that money's probably been spent by now, but who knows? We just don't know how much money he has. So anyway, there you go.
Yeah, no, so that's fun, and lots more that we are going to work on and do tomorrow. And we have to remember that the Rangers front office is right back at it, right? I mean, they are. This is still a big time of year, and we've seen it so many times when big free agents sign at or right around Christmas, and it's not unusual, and we are not. Look, we're on high alert. Even as we are remote today, we're on high alert for the Rangers, who are still very much in the market. I think first and foremost, Jeff, for that closer.
Yeah, I think that, we toss this off of Mike Bassett, $2 and $21 million gets Kirby Yates. So go ahead and get that one done, and then you're done. Then just put all your focus on Sasaki. And if that doesn't go the right way, all right. If it goes the right way, great. But, then go to spring training and let's go.
Yeah, it would kind of be like that feeling that we all had earlier this week, or maybe last week if you're lucky, or if you're really lucky way back when. But when you finish everything for Christmas, we're done. We're done. We got it all. got all the presents and away we go, right? We can relax and enjoy the holiday. That would be nice if for the Rangers and Ranger fans to have that feeling like, wow, they're done. But I know even when they're done, we'll be like, they could still use that right-handed outfielder. You know?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So,
all right.
Well,
we're
man,
done.
yeah, we are done. That was fun. It was good. Thanks to the Queen for putting this together, because it might not have been possible were it not for her. But here we are. We got it done. I'll be in studio tomorrow. Jeff will be in Colorado, and you will be where you are right now, hanging out with us. We hope you will. We appreciate you. We'll see you tomorrow. Another edition of the DLLS Rangers Podcast.